Hi, I want to talk about genius today. You know, if I put on the hat, I can become Eshkalar. Eshkalar, the world's greatest Canadian wizard. You know why I'm great? It's because I'm a genius level spellbinder. Ebe skinny babu ben fazali pa. Lucky there's no magic in this particular universe, or I just would have thrown a meteor swarm at the monitor. But at any rate, but Eshkalar is a genius because his writer says he's a genius, not because he's a genius. But what about his writer? His writer is Wild Bill, lives in Sharpsburg. That's me. And if I want to call myself a genius, well, people get a little awkward around that because I've done it. My detractors will gladly, gleefully admit to you, oh, he thinks he's a friggin' genius. And they're right. I do. I have reason to think so. Back when I was 10 to 12 years old, I was considered to be the smartest kid ever born. There are reasons for that. I was a terrible, troubled child. I gave my parents no end of hell, and they didn't deserve me. They were nice people. They much deserved a better son. However, in the process of all their taking me to psychologists, psychiatrists, looking at treatment options, looking at imprisonment, well, in those days it was institutionalization. Same deal. You know, you have no control over your fate, and people tell you what to do, and they're idiots. So anyway, I was taken through a battery of intelligence tests, of which there were 5 or 6, and of which 3 of them were indexed into a cooperative index. 3 of them were literally called IQ tests, and they were indexed into an overriding index. So that supposedly being a logarithmic IQ scale. Ooh. The one test said I was 210. And the one test said I was 197. And the one test said I was 148. Dick. I don't believe in that test. So when they put them together in this cooperative format that they had for it, I came out to be, I think it was 163 or something, which put me in Newton's class, according to what they think, Da Vinci's class. So they thought I was going to be the smartest person ever born. And they thought I was going to be the next great genius, that I was going to be the next great inventive genius, whatever it is you conceive of genius to be, because they weren't thinking of the kind of genius that doesn't make money. They weren't thinking of the kind of genius that doesn't write papers. And they weren't thinking of the kind of genius that might be living under a bridge because he has terrible social problems. Because genius isn't just wings to the soul. Genius is a learning disability. I can explain. So my parents were at wit's end as to what to do with me. Were advised, of course, to send me to a special school, and I was sent to the best school in the land. The best, the very best school in the land. And you had to get recommended for it. And I was lucky that everybody thought I was so smart, or else I never would have got in. I didn't do well because I didn't study the topics they wanted me to teach, or that they wanted me to study, because I was a genius. And I'm not saying that funny. I'm not saying that full of myself. I'll be that way later. But for now, I'm saying it because what genius is an extreme, extratemporal focus or exploration along a particular axis of study or interest. It isn't a rule-following drone. So you can't say, well, today you have to be a genius in economics, and then in 20 minutes you're going to have to be a genius at gym, and in an hour and a half you're going to have to be a genius at physics, and in an hour and 35 minutes you're going to, or, you know, whatever, you're going to have to be a genius in home ec, and then you're going to have to be. That's what they expected, because none of them was a genius. None of them knew what genius was. None of them understood the parameters of what genius is, and I've already described them to you very well. I'm not going to have to go through it again. So, in addition, there are 2 kinds of genius, and I was the one that doesn't lend well to socialization. 2 kinds of genius. There is the intuitive, also called the creative genius, and there is the extrapolative, interpretive genius, also called the engineering genius. And I was this kind. I wasn't this kind. This kind can make a good living. Really? Oh my gosh, aeronautic engineers make a lot of money. This kind, A lot of them are living under the bridge because they can't communicate with people very well because they're not on other people's level. Excuse me. They don't even know what level is. They're moving in some crazy direction that no one expected, that they don't care. They don't know. This is what I do. This is what I do. This extreme extrapolative focus is who I am. That's what genius is. Genius isn't like, well, I'm going to work from 9 to 5, and I'm going to go home and be a genius. It's not what it's like. It's not like Sheldon Cooper. Sheldon Cooper, I've been told on several occasions that the person that wrote that part met me. But he didn't write any of my flaws into the Sheldon character. He gave him artificial flaws because he had an agenda, as you well know, watching the show. But genius isn't a survival trait. The human race does not select for genius. If it did, we'd all be geniuses. And nobody would be talking like that. And nobody would be embarrassed if I called myself a genius, because they'd all be geniuses too. So, genius is not selected for. And I can prove that. Because, do you know why female robins select mates? Do you think they select mates because this mate is the best darn worm hunter ever born? No. Do does select Bambi because he can speak human? What do robin females select for? That big red chest. Oh, is that cute? And that look, a little hop step. Oh, you see the hop step? That's different than the other guys. When he goes, oh, that's so much cuter than the other ones. That's what female robins select for. Female deer are like, would you look at the antlers on that one? You know what they say about big antlers. So, what does an antler do for a stag? Nothing. It gets him hung up in the forest and the hunter kills him. So, and stags are stupid. They'll willfully gore does and yearlings if they can back them into a corner when they're in rut. So anyway. Females don't select for genius. And I don't mean to say that as an indictment against females or to suggest that females aren't geniuses too, because the female half of the human population certainly produced its share of geniuses. But they weren't survival experts, Mary Curie. Not a bit. You played with the worst fire imaginable and killed yourself or died horribly. And you know you did. But I admire your genius, and you'll know that I was right to do so. So anyway, genius is neither selected for in the human genome, nor is it a survival trait purely in and of itself. It's not. There is survival genius, but that's one type out of the multiplicity of types of genius that there are. So when I called myself a genius, and I am, and I rated as one, they thought I was one of the most brilliant people I ever lived. Like I said, that 163 that they rated me put me up with Newton. Here I am creating calculus. Well, he really stole calculus, but still, you get my point. And they thought I was going to be as smart as Da Vinci. And here I am inventing a helicopter. Did you know that there was a little pull toy helicopter when he was growing up as a child? Yeah. No man is an island. Not even me. Okay, well, the reason I'm saying this is when a person tells you he's a genius, he might very well be. But what does that mean? That doesn't mean he's going to run your country better. That doesn't mean that he's going to be better at something that isn't his sphere of interest, that isn't his axis of extemporal and extreme focus. Is it? No, there aren't many of those. And the few that there were, we talk about forever. Man, people still talking about Otto von Bismarck, the most dysfunctional, genius-level diplomat there ever was. And his great opponents, and Disraeli, and people like that. So these guys were geniuses, but they're few and far between. It's not like they come down the pike very often because genius is not selected for. It's just a random thing that pops up. And let me tell you, the potential mates that admire genius above other physical traits are few and far between. There are some, so I'm not going to make fun of them. There's one girl I remember that thought that I was so wonderful because I was so smart, and she didn't know half of it. And now she is the smart one. But she forced herself to do it. She studied and she earned her doctorate, and she's done all the things that this society claims are successful things to do with genius. But very few females select for brilliance or select for genius. And very few male potential mates select for genius either. So it's really kind of a random thing. And if you're the good kind of genius, I hate to say it that way, if you're the lucky kind of genius, and your focus lies in some venue that makes the world a better place for your having been there, I made a diffusion filter that filters all the impurities out of water. Hey, that's pretty cool. But that doesn't necessarily make you a genius. It makes you an interpretive genius, not, an extrapolative genius, not an intuitive one. But at any rate, you aren't necessarily a better captain at the helm of a national ship, of a ship of state, right? Just because you're a genius. None of you will remember the movie, what was it called, The Day After Tomorrow, about the engineer. And we all thought he was the good guy. At the end, you realize that he had no morals. He only had ethics. He was only half a human. So anyway, I wanted to put that in front of you all. I'm not a particular fan of this president, and I wasn't a particular fan of the last president. So I don't know where I stand anymore. But I will say this. Trusting a person to run your affairs simply because he or she states that he or she is a genius is probably intemperate behavior. You should check your fundamental convictions before you go with a habit like that. Because, I could give you all kinds of good advice, but I couldn't guarantee that if you follow it, things will come out all right. Because I might be a genius, but I'm not infinitely wise. Only God is infinitely wise. If somebody knows somebody that is infinitely wise that isn't God, please introduce me to him or her, or it. I'd be fascinated to have my underpinnings shaken like that. Go ahead and shake my pillars of heaven if you know somebody like that. And if you know somebody that's rated that much higher on IQ tests, I'd like to meet them too. I'll bet we'll have an interesting discussion. But neither of us is going to be a specialist at running the largest country in the world as it competes with every other nation on earth for prestige, which directly equals product recognition, which directly equals profit, which we hope equals greater quality of life for everybody, but really, practically only means greater quality of life for the 1%. Okay, that's my whole point for today. Hope I didn't step on any toes, because I really don't hate any Republicans, and I really don't hate any Democrats, and I really don't hate any conservatives, and I really don't hate any libtards. I mean liberals.